Welcome back, soon to be Dr. Milo Wolf here with Wolf Coaching. Hope you're all doing well. Today, we're reviewing a gentleman's training routine by the name of Bradley Martyn. I actually used to view and watch Bradley Martyn a few years ago when I was starting to study sports science. Since then, as you might expect, I've watched him a lot less, especially as he's become a bit more of an influencer. It's been a while since I looked at this stuff. However, I see that he's released a very popular biceps and triceps full arm routine. And I just wanted to give it a review and see, hey, from a sports science perspective, is it any good? So let's jump into it.
What's going on, guys? Bradley Martyn.
It's Bradley Martyn.
I'm giving you guys, of course, what day would be complete without arm day? Okay, so every day is arm day, but today was actually arm day. So I'm gonna give you guys a different routine.
Oh God, is this where the everyday is arm day meme came from? It's that segment of lifting culture. There's certain niches or segments of lifting culture that are just a bit much, and this is one of them.
Tricep. Everything is back and forth, back and forth. Not all supersets, but everything is bicep and tricep. So this is the kind of scheme we're going with here. Started with the close grip.
First off, before we go any further, I just want to say supersetting biceps and triceps, actually a pretty good idea. Supersetting different muscle groups that are not overlapping, and specifically muscle groups that are antagonistic, which are called antagonist paired supersets, are actually a pretty good idea. Like, you generally save about 50% of the time you would take usually, and you get the same hypertrophy. You can check out this video here for more information on how that works, but it's a very good time efficient option if you're hitting two muscle groups that are not too systemically fatiguing, like if you're doing squats and RDLs. That's going to be quite challenging because even putting aside that they both use the glutes, both of those are very systemically fatiguing exercises. But if you're talking about isolation exercises for the biceps and the triceps, supersetting the two can be a very time efficient option. So far, phenomenal.
Barbell bench. And I did this in a way where I'm not bringing it all the way down to my chest, because the point is I'm trying to keep the tension on the tricep rather than my chest. So as I bring it further down, I notice I'll start to feel the chest.
What the fuck is that? Look at his fucking technique. Bro, please just go all the way down. We have pretty compelling research at this point that getting a lengthened position into your exercise, using a full range of motion or doing lengthened partials, is actually very productive for muscle growth. Please, for the love of God, just go all the way down, get a deep stretch in your triceps, and I can not guarantee, but I can make a very confident bet here that your triceps will grow more than if you kept constant tension on the triceps. There's a video on constant tension right here. It's not all that.
Stretching the chest, and I'll get more contraction throughout there. So you guys can tell in this video, I'm coming.
Yes, halfway down is precisely the problem.
Degrees, stop right there, and then press out with the tricep. So I'm trying to keep the whole.
Very strong though, very strong individual.
On the tricep, okay? Pause for a second and squeeze it out. I worked into about 315. Felt good. It's my first time doing this in a long time, so that was cool. For this exercise, I'm doing 4 sets.
4 sets of 8 to 10.
And I'm super
nothing wrong with that. Oh no. Why did he have to use the banded bicep curl? He was already fucking it up with the fucking not getting a full stretch on the triceps in the close grip bench. Yes, he's very strong, very handsome too, but why now the banded bicep curl? The banded bicep curl is one of your probably worst options for bicep growth. Unless you only have bands, there's much better options. You could do a preacher curl where there's plenty of tension at the bottom. You could do a behind the back cable curl where you get plenty of tension in that lengthened position for the biceps. We have several studies on the biceps looking at more lengthened training versus more shortened training, and we can pretty confidently say at this point that doing banded curls for bicep growth, that ain't it. That's not what you want to do for maximizing growth. So I like the superset idea. So far, I don't like the execution on either the close grip bench, and I don't like the exercise choice on the banded curl.
Since these are 4 sets for the tricep, I'm just doing 4 sets, complete failure with the banded curl. So I'm just going just to failure every set. Okay, and then going right back to the tricep, resting about 2 minutes and getting back to it.
Okay, so first of all, going to failure on the banded bicep curl, not a terrible thing. I think for muscle growth, that's actually a decent thing. Resting about 2 minutes between sets is probably fine. Generally, for more compound exercises like the close grip bench, a bit more than 2 minutes can be fine, but because he's only supersetting it with a curl, 2 minutes between the curl and the bench, and then between the bench and the curl, pretty good idea. We do have evidence that longer rest times are better, but if you're resting in total over 4 minutes between sets of bench, for example, you're doing a pretty good job. So as far as rest times go, really good. As far as training to failure, pretty good idea as well. I would generally recommend keeping some reps in the tank on the first couple sets, just because otherwise the rest of your session takes a big hit. Training to failure is quite fatiguing, and there is an impact of volume load on overall hypertrophy, or how much weight are you able to lift for how many sets, for how many reps. You can see that in this video here. But overall, not terrible advice. I like it.
This is like different. You guys may have never even seen this before, but I actually thought of it today.
He thought of it today. That is very funny.
So we're doing on the low row, like a low cable roll. No,
I'm not sure it was funny.
And what I did was I set up a hex bar, and I'm focusing on kind of like you guys would do like an isolation curl where you're putting your weight, like your elbows on a bench, but I'm putting my elbows, you guys can see, like on my knees. So I'm locking my elbows against my knees. So you guys see that the full stretch, all the way, complete contraction, but I'm not letting my elbows come off my knees. So you guys have seen the video. Kind of keep your chest up, let the weight go all the way out, all the way back in, but don't let the elbows.
I'm just not really sure what this accomplishes versus a preach curl. It just seems like a very convoluted way of doing a curl, right? It's less stable than a preach curl, which is not very good for muscle growth. It does have a lot of tension at the bottom. You can see the cable is horizontal at the bottom, which means the most tension, and then it kind of angles up, which means it gets easier as he shortens the biceps, and that's probably a good thing. But he is also getting some lower back fatigue, right? It's kind of like when you're doing a cable row, where when you unrack the weight and you have to hold it steady while you're rowing, you are getting some lower back fatigue and some involvement of the glutes and hamstrings just to stabilize the load. Now, for a bicep exercise, I'm not sure it's really warranted to have that sort of involvement and just be more fatiguing and more difficult to coordinate overall. I would rather he do something like a preach curl, but overall, it's not terrible.
The elbows rise up off the knees, so you keep tension on the bicep. All right, so for this exercise,
again, this weird notion of keeping tension on the biceps.
Not like the previous one. We're doing 5 sets, 10 to 12 reps each set. Following this exercise, probably one of my personal favorite tricep exercises for strength, for size, is the seated, like in a military seat, part of my lower.
Not bad.
So I like to sit down. I feel like I get more focus on the tricep.
So this is a lot of sets. From what I've seen on either the cable curl or these overhead extensions, he's not really going very close to failure. I think he could do with lowering the number of sets a little bit and going a bit closer to failure, especially on those last few sets. With that being said, as far as the exercise choice goes, big thumbs up. I like it. Putting the shoulder in an overhead position or in a fully flexed position allows the triceps long head to be lengthened more, and lengthening the triceps under load is a very good way of growing them. So when you're considering your tricep choices, right, a push down is probably your least beneficial option. A skull crusher is kind of your second best option. And then finally, overhead extensions are probably your best option for tricep growth on average, just because they allow you to lengthen the long head a little bit more. As far as his execution goes in this video, it's pretty decent. I would say if you could get all the way down, that might be better. He's not getting a full stretch. If you could pause at the bottom, that'd be awesome. And finally, he is letting his elbows come out and down a little bit, which turns it into a bit more of an overhead press versus more of a strict tricep isolation exercise. I do think with overhead extensions, you're best off keeping your elbows pointing at the ceiling. That's a really good cue of thinking about while you're doing your overhead extension, because it allows you to keep your shoulder fully overhead and maximize the stretch on the long head of the triceps.
The guys in barbell were making fun of me. They're like, how did your sweat come out like evenly? But anyways.
Man like Bradley do be sweating. I respect it.
Think about keeping the elbows at the side, keeping the hands down just outside of my hips, my quads in this case. And I'm just focusing on keeping my glutes nice and tight right as I start the motion, so I'm nice and stiff. Right?
Nice and stiff.
Bring it all the way through. And this one I'm doing probably like, because I went a little bit heavier. I normally wouldn't do this.
Man like Bradley really just wanted to flex on us with the 135 curl for sets. I respect it. We've all been there. Technique is pretty decent. There is definitely some body English involved. I would say if you could cut that down and drop the weight, as you mentioned, probably better. He's actually doing some half reps at the bottom for certain reps, which is slightly better for growth. If you look at this video here, there's some evidence around lengthened partials being good for hypertrophy, so there's some point to that. Overall, not terrible, not the best, right? Like some body English, and not the best exercise overall because it doesn't challenge that bottom position very well. Something like a preach curl or like a behind the back cable curl would be slightly better, but it's not the worst, and the form is not terrible, so I respect it.
For the 10, much better in this one. And then I just did a burnout. So these two exercises at the end here are superset. I did a burnout, these tricep presses, right? So
why is he mentioning that the last 2 exercises are supersetted? Like the previous 4 weren't? They've all been supersets, Bradley. Why are you specifying this again?
And what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about keeping my wrist above the barbell. So when I'm coming in, I'm trying not to let my wrist bend down. I'm trying to keep my wrist above, and I'm trying to keep the pressure on my tricep all the way throughout.
So I do think this exercise is a decent option overall, especially if you don't have much equipment. I've actually done these off a bathroom sink, for example, during COVID lockdowns, RIP, when I didn't have any equipment, and they can be pretty effective, right? Like they're a good minimum equipment, skull crusher type tricep exercise. I do think the way he's performing them here is not ideal. First of all, he's not getting a full stretch. Second of all, I would keep the elbows in to maximize elbow flexion range of motion without involving the shoulder very much or the chest. But overall, it's not terrible. I will say if you have access to a gym, I would typically recommend a dumbbell skull crusher over this. Dumbbells for skull crushers are a great option for many things actually, not just a skull crusher, because they're a lot more time efficient, right? With a barbell, you have to load it up, you have to load the exact weight you need, etc. Whereas with dumbbells, you can literally just run the rack. Do 1 set of dumbbells, warm up, 2nd set of dumbbells, warm up, 3rd set of dumbbells, do your walking set. It took you next to no time to set up the equipment, set up the exercise, and get started. So I'd say generally I would recommend something like dumbbells or an easy bar or a barbell for skull crushers over something like this, especially because, as he mentions, it does double as a core workout, which isn't really a good thing because then you can be limited by stability and by your core strength rather than your triceps. And the goal here is to train your triceps, if I understand correctly. Every day is arm day, not every day is core day. So
higher, but you can set up even lower where the barbell is. But the lower you put it, the more you get into like that horizontal motion of your, not horizontal motion, but the horizontal position of your body. And the lower you get, the more core involvement it involves. So it's a cool exercise, great for the triceps to finish it out, good contraction, just body weight. You guys could put bands and, down to some dumbbells if you want to, but that's like getting really out of control. So that's it, that's a burnout.
I'm not sure why he keeps saying the word burnout. I'm not sure he knows what it means, because in this case for the biceps he's doing sets of 5 to 10. Usually when people say burnout they mean like, oh, you're doing higher reps, especially close to failure, to finish the session off. Not that there's anything magical about that, because there isn't. It can be a nice fun way to finish a session and get a nice pump, but he keeps saying it as though it's magical, and it's a bit weird. It's the classic like bodybuilder addiction to constant tension training and burnout training, like that's anything magical, but otherwise not bad.
Fuck Nadeem, man. Nadeem, you know what happened to me and Nadeem? So we were like out, right? And like I tripped.
Yeah, literally.
And then
what is going on here?
Yeah, like
he fell down. I was like, "Fuck it, this is my opportunity." I started kicking him.
Is this the personality segment of the video?
In barbell or anywhere like in life.
The music is way too loud. The microphone quality is rough. All right, Bradley Martyn's arm day reviewed. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it a solid like 7 out of 10. It's not perfect. There's some flaws, right? With the banded curl, with the execution on the close grip bench, but there are some good things about it too. There's the supersets, there's generally training pretty close to failure. A lot of it I fuck with. He even did some overhead extensions, So I gotta respect that. He's also very strong and quite handsome, if I don't say so myself. Anyways, that's the video. 7 out of 10 for Bradley Martyn. If you like the video, please comment, like, subscribe. If there's anything else you want to see, anyone else you want to see me critique, or anyone else's training advice you want me to break down, give it a comment down below. Let me know who you want to see, and I will see you guys, my viewers, in that next one. Peace. Fun fact, I've actually been told quite a few times, especially before the beard here, that I look like Bradley Martyn. So take that as you will. We're basically the same person. He just lives a continent away. No big deal. Overseas, across the pond. Peace.